I came across this YouTube channel, True Rock Stories. I've been addicted. I ain't gonna lie. Like I've been rock and roll true stories has got a hold over it.
1995 saw White Zombie release their final studio album, Astro Creep 2000, Songs of Love, Destruction, and Other Synthetic Delusions of the Electric Head. The album would be the group's most commercially successful record, peaking at number 6 on the Billboard album charts. To support the record, White Zombie would hit the road with a variety of bands, including the Toadies and today's topic, the Melvins.
I've listened to some Toadies.
Pairing, and it was.
I've listened to a lot of Melvins.
Had a horrendous time opening for White Zombie, and frontman King Buzzo would describe it as one of his worst experiences. Today, let's take a look at what happened on that tour.
You got me. This channel got me.
In 1995, the Melvins were playing support to several high-profile bands, including today's topic, White Zombie, and 9 Inch Nails, a band we'll talk about later in the video. 1 year prior, the Melvins released their album Stoner Witch. The band spent almost 2 months on the road with White Zombie from May to June of 1995, and also on the bill for part of that tour was Reverend Horton Heat and Babes in Toyland. One review I stumbled upon said the following about one of the shows in Philadelphia, saying, "Considering today's lackluster stage shows, White Zombie's over-the-top blowout was a joy. Opening act the Melvins went over everyone's heads and knew it. When the group pointed that Philadelphia was home to the Mutter Museum, few in the audience had ever heard of the famous repository of medical oddities." In a separate interview I found online, the Melvins have always been known as a little bizarre if not temperamental, and when the anxious crowd began chanting White Zombie, about 2 songs into the Melvins set, lead guitarist and vocalist King Buzzo announced something to the effect of, "Here's our new song called 30 Minutes of Feedback." With that, the band leaned their instruments up against the speakers, causing a terrible squeal. The sound man, I suspect, not knowing if this was part of the band's regular stage show or not, let the instruments scream for a minute or two before cutting the sound.
Well, that's definitely not going to get them on us.
Looked at one another.
It's definitely not going to get the crowd on your side. Melvins, you know, you want to try to win them over, not, you know, infuriate them worse. You gonna mess it up for White Zombie them before they even get on stage. They gonna be in a bad mood.
A few minutes later, the stage was cleared. White Zombie came on, and that was the end of that. Back in 2012, the Melvins were out on tour, and frontman King Buzzo would publish stories from the road on Spin.com, where he discussed the tour with White Zombie in detail, saying, "We played a lot of shows with Babes in Toyland back then, and they were always fun. We did a tour with them and White Zombie, and we both got treated like effing dog shit on that tour by the powers that be. It was a massively unnecessary situation of pointless rock star behavior. I don't know what was going through Rob Zombie's head, but if making enemies is what you set out to do, well, mission accomplished. I've been around people you would consider a rock star like the guys in Kiss, and they never behaved like that. It just makes you hate lower level F-heads like Rob Zombie even more. If I got treated like that by the effing mailman, I'd hate his guts," he'd say.
The dumbest thing I have ever seen a fellow musician do. What was that? Man, I don't even know where to begin. One time we were on a tour. It was certainly the worst tour we ever did, which was opening for White Zombie, you know. And their sound guy made us stop sound checking because it was bothering Rob while he was eating.
Diva.
And I remember thinking, what is he eating? Fabergé egg omelet, you know? It's like joking. You know, whatever. It was an endless amount of that stuff. You know, endless. People, I don't know, people, for some reason, they either don't believe those stories or they think that since we haven't sold millions of records, our opinion doesn't count.
It was in 2014 that King Buzzo spoke to the Phoenix New Times, where he once again slammed Rob Zombie, saying, "I mean, do you think on the White Zombie Marilyn Manson tour they had more than 2 shows in a row? These guys aren't working 4 days a week, so we've already surpassed all that. A lot of other bands don't do that either. So tonight we're playing our 9th show in a row. That's like literally asking most rock bands to drop to their knees and slit their wrists. What do you expect me to do? Oh yeah, sure, he really has to protect it when he's running that tape. I don't know how he handles it. Fortunately, in this day and age, you actually have to give props to bands who literally play their instruments. That's how screwed up everything is. Totally weird. I mean,
so Rob Zombie wasn't even playing
can get on stage and play with a real band. 45-year-old Rob Zombie can't do it. That's just stupid," he'd say.
You're lip singing.
In 1994, 9 Inch Nails released the defining album of their career, The Downward Spiral. To support the album, 9 Inch Nails launched the Self-Destruct Tour, which ran from early 1994 to middle of 1996. And by early 95, 9 Inch Nails has started to play bigger venues. On this leg of the tour, one of the supporting acts included the Melvins, along with Pop Will Eat Itself and the Jim Rose Circus. Nine Inch Nails leader Trent Reznor was a big fan of the Melvins, and Pop Will Eat Itself was on his label Nothing Records. Former Nine Inch Nails drummer Chris Verena recalled a tour to author John Wiederhorn in the great book Raising Hell, saying the following: "I'm a huge Melvins fan, and we love those guys, but those guys got booed off stage every night." The website RidleyKemp.com posted a review of one of the tour stops in Dallas, Texas, at the Fair Park Coliseum. According to the author of the article, the plywood had been replaced by maybe an eighth of an inch of particle board. You could feel the cold if you walked on the floor of the arena, or at least you could if you weren't wearing army boots like I was. The author would go on to say that Pop Will Eat Itself received a ton of radio airplay in Dallas around this time, so the Coliseum was already full by the time the opening acts took to the stage. The author would go on to state, "The floor of the Coliseum was nearly full when the lights went down, and you could literally feel the edgy energy of the mosh pit that was about to explode, and then it all went wrong." He'd go on to say that the crowd had reacted poorly to the Melvins set, with some people turning their backs to the band, and at one point during the show, the audience started to rip the particle board floors and throw them on stage. None of the particle board was just ice. The Melvins apparently got pissed and started to play the same note over and over again, with Melvins guitarist and singer King Buzzo improvising lyrics about how stupid the crowd was. According to Verena, he would recall in the same book, the Melvins got the biggest roar of feedback that they could generate, and they walked behind all their guitar cabinets and sat there on stage and let the noise go for 30 minutes before they left the stage. "I felt so bad for the Melvins. Our fans hated them, which I don't understand," he'd say. And by the end of their set, the Melvins would slam their instruments on the ground, gave the crowd the finger, and then walked off stage. It was at this point in time that Trent Reznor took the stage and said the following to the crowd: "Dude, not cool. This next act does some seriously dangerous shit," referring to the Jim Rose Circus, "and if anyone throws anything at them, we're not playing tonight," he'd say. It would turn out that night in Dallas, Nine Inch Nails were planning on filming a long-form video for a potential future release, but the project got scrapped. King Buzzo would take credit for the failed release that night in Dallas to Wiederhorn. "I thought that the Nine Inch Nails show was going to be so energetic and amazing, but by the time they took to the stage, the audience was totally dead and lifeless. So Nine Inch Nails shit-canned the entire thing. We literally took the life out of them and ruined their entire DVD," he'd say. In 2012, the Melvins would embark on a Guinness World Record by playing 51 states and 51 dates on tour. During that tour, King Buzzo was keeping a diary at spin.com, and he recounted his experience on tour in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, when he last played there with Nine Inch Nails in 1995, revealing, "The only other time we played in Sioux Falls was in the mid-90s when we were on tour with Nine Inch Nails. After the show, I watched the cast and crew of Nine Inch Nails do, I'd say $30,000 worth of damage to a brand new arena dressing room. I fortunately got all of that adolescent vandal behavior out of my system when I was a teenager. I honestly don't know much about Nine Inch Nails before this tour. I mean, I knew they were popular with the MTV baby rock crowd and that they'd sold a lot of records, but I never actually listened to one of them. Why would I? I usually have no interest in checking out what sort of bands the baby rockers dig. This is a result of almost always hating whatever bands the baby rockers dig," he'd say. So that does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like button and subscribe. We'll see you again in rock and roll.
The Melvins sound like they didn't enjoy being the opening act, and the audience didn't like their energy, because if it happened on two separate tours with two different bands, which I think Nine Inch Nails and White Zombie have two different types of audiences. I don't think they're in the same audience boat. Outside of being a rock and roll band, it's their own subgenres of what they are in. So but my thing was, why wouldn't he try to win the crowd over more than be aggressive and fight back with the crowd? That's the only thing. Like, King Buzzo is kind of throwing me off. Wouldn't you want to just play through, win them over? But no, they was giving them feedback and playing one note for long periods of time. They was radicals. They was radicals, but it sounded like they needed to be on their own tour, or they just didn't know what fan bases to open for, because it sounded like the Nine Inch Nails and the White Zombies fan bases just didn't care for the Melvins.